All right, let's get into it. We are breaking down one of the most complex and frankly disturbing scandals of our time, the story of Jeffrey Epstein. In this explainer, we're going to try to connect the dots, from his really mysterious rise to power, all the way to the secrets that are, believe it or not, still being unsealed today. So, where do we even begin? Let's dive right into the mysteries that just hang over this entire story, right? You've got this infamous island, this supposed paradise that might have been a prison. You've got all these powerful, famous guests. And then there's the death. A really suspicious death in a high-security jail that honestly raises way more questions than it answers. What is the truth here? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we've got to look at all these different pieces of the puzzle. We're talking about the secret island, his private jet, the guest list, and of course, the files. Let's start with the man himself and the just unbelievable empire he managed to build. All right, first stop, let's head to the place where so many of these horrific crimes allegedly happened. We're talking about a 72-acre private island in the Caribbean. Its official name was Little St. James, but pretty much everyone in the world now knows it by a much darker name, Epstein Island. You know, on the surface, this place was paradise. It hosted the global elite. We're talking celebrities, politicians, billionaires. But underneath all that luxury, it was apparently designed for absolute secrecy. I mean, investigators found hidden passages and cameras everywhere. And that really makes you wonder, right? Was all that for security? Or was it for something much, much darker, like blackmail? So, the big question is, how on earth did this guy do it? How does a man from a pretty humble background end up building such a powerful and, frankly, terrifying empire? His journey from being a math teacher to a Wall Street mogul is absolutely central to understanding this whole thing. And his rise was, well, it was incredibly fast. I mean, look at this. In the 70s, he's a math teacher. By the 80s, he's on Wall Street. And then in the 90s, he's managing money for billionaires, making a fortune. By the 2000s, he has this global empire. He basically worked his way into the inner circles of the ultra-wealthy, managed their money, and then used those connections to build a network that gave him almost unbelievable power. But here's the thing. His power wasn't just about the money. It was all about his network. And this is where the story takes a truly dark turn. It was a network he allegedly used to create and run this horrifying criminal operation, preying on young women and girls. And he didn't do it alone. You really have to understand the two central roles here. Epstein, he was the financier. He had the wealth, the power, the private island, all the safe havens. But court testimony paints his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, as the recruiter. She was allegedly the one who lured in and groomed the underage girls for Epstein and his powerful guests. And how did these powerful people get to his private island? Well, often on his private jet, which the media nicknamed the Lolita Express. And just look at some of the names associated with him. We're talking about former presidents like Bill Clinton, royalty like Prince Andrew, and other major figures like Donald Trump and Bill Gates. The flight logs from that jet have now forever tied their names to this scandal, even though many of them have strongly denied knowing anything about his crime. So you'd think with all this going on, the law would catch up to him, right? Well, it did. But the first time it happened, the outcome was just shocking. It's been called one of the biggest failures of justice in recent history. And this deal basically allowed him to continue his abuse for years. And it's really important to remember how this all started to come to light. It began with the incredible courage of one person. Back in 2005, a victim named Courtney Wild was the first to file a police report in Florida. That one brave act, it was like opening the floodgates. Suddenly, investigators started uncovering this massive pattern of abuse involving dozens of girls, and it kicked off a huge federal investigation. But then, look what happened. This is where the system just completely failed. Epstein was facing federal charges that could have put him away for life, but instead, his lawyers cut the secret, backroom deal. The victims had no idea. And what was the result? An absurdly light sentence. He served just 13 months with work release. And maybe worst of all, the deal gave immunity to his powerful friends and co-conspirators, protecting them and bearing the truth for another 10 years. So after that deal, years of silence followed. It seemed like he had gotten away with it. But the truth, well, the truth has a way of coming out, and it couldn't stay buried forever thanks to some absolutely incredible investigative journalism and, of course, the victims, who just refused to give up. And once the story broke open again, Just look at how fast everything unraveled. In 2018, a journalist's reporting completely reignites the case. By July 2019, Epstein is arrested again, and this time there's no bail. A month later, he's found dead. Then Ghislaine Maxwell is arrested, and by 2022, she's sentenced to 20 years. The walls just completely closed in. The very system that once seemed to protect him was now coming for him and everyone involved. But then, just as he was about to face trial, just as he could have potentially started naming names, the story takes its most bizarre and shocking turn, and it leads to a huge question that people are still debating like crazy today. Okay, so officially, his death was ruled a suicide. But let's just look at the facts here. Both of the CCTV cameras outside his cell just happened to malfunction that night. The two guards who were supposed to be on duty were asleep, and he had just recently been taken off of suicide watch. I mean, you can see why these circumstances fueled this massive belief that he was silenced to protect all the powerful people he knew. So Epstein himself is gone, but the fallout from his crimes, that is far from over. His death wasn't the end of the story. You could actually say it was just the beginning of the public really digging in and demanding answers. And one part of that fallout was trying to find some kind of justice for the victims. Now, obviously, no amount of money can ever undo the trauma, but a compensation fund was set up using his estate. And it ended up paying out $121 million to more than 150 survivors who bravely came forward to tell their stories. And that brings us to today. Years after his death, we're still seeing court-ordered releases of documents. These Epstein files are slowly being unsealed, revealing more names and more details. It just shows you that the public demand for the full truth is not going away. And that's really the key takeaway here. He's gone, but the story is absolutely still unfolding. Every time new documents are released, there are new revelations, and this whole scandal gets thrown right back into the spotlight. So where does that leave us? It's pretty incredible when you think about it. This whole thing started with the voice of one brave girl, and it has since exposed a level of corruption that seems to go all the way to the top of society. And it leaves us with the biggest question of all. Is Epstein gone, but are his secrets buried right there with him? Will we ever really know the full truth?